Can you talk about your first deployment at Development Group?
First one was Iraq.
And that would have been like right at the height, right? Like 05, 06?
05.
Yeah.
And then, I had Iraq, Afghanistan, like back and forth. A lot of like, without getting too specific, like, just, amazing. And, I really like enjoyed, I knew I was like where I wanted to be, doing what I wanted to do. That peak kind of sense of purpose. But on the same hand, it was like during that same period, like I think I was gone like about 285 days a year.
Wow.
Between the shorter deployments, but like just so frequent, and then all the travel in between them. Mm-hmm. And then, like we had 200. Yeah, I looked at like, I remember looking at like days TAD or whatever on whatever the LES. It was like 285 or, wow. So it was pretty fast pace, high op tempo, lots going on back then. So
did you find Iraq or Afghanistan, either of them being more challenging than the other?
Kind of depended on where you were and who you were chasing, or what, who you're kind of facing. Like early on in Iraq, it was kind of like, kind of felt like maybe sometimes they weren't as like fierce as they were in Afghanistan. Maybe because they were more educated and they would realize, like, hey, we're surrounded, we'll give up. Right. But then towards the end, you got into maybe a different cell, Al Qaeda, ISIS, whatever. And they were like, maybe from like another country. And everyone would be wearing suicide vests, and they were the definition of fierce. Right. So, and then, Afghanistan would be really hard up north, especially in the winter in the mountains and stuff like that. And even down south, like by Kandahar, could be challenging. Just maybe there's less air assets or whatever. So it kind of depended.
Yeah.
There are a lot of variables to it. But yeah, I think there was a lot of like ebb and flow between the two.
Right. Mm-hmm. Do you remember prior to deploying any development group deployments being kind of sat down and given the 30,000 foot view strategy wise, like, hey, we're going to this area, this is our objective.
Yeah.
Here's what winning looks like, essentially. Like, here's what we're trying to accomplish.
No, honestly, it was more like, always get an ROE brief, right, from the JAG. And then, after he left, someone would kind of like tie a bow on that somehow. But get the ROE brief, hey, we're going over here. We're replacing these guys. This is who they were chasing. We're going to start there and see where it goes in support of, OEF, OIF, whatever. I think, at that age, like, and especially having gone through all the training that I had gone into, like, if we were like, hey, we're going to go into other countries, I'd be like, sign me up. Right. I was all about it. Like, and I think that's the job of the warrior. Like I wanted to, my In fact, when I think I turned 22 on my first deployment, I called my mom and she's like, this is September 7th of '01, right? So 4 days before 9/11. And my mom's like, well, what do you want for your birthday? And I'm like, Mom, I just want a war to fight. I mean, talk about dumb things people say. Like, so I say that because at that age, not knowing any better, and like we're warriors, like we want to go do this. We don't want to just
Practice.
Yeah, we don't want to be football players that practice and don't play games. But then with the benefit of hindsight, like, you know, I hear things and see new stuff. I'm like, you hear about like the military industrial complex and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I lost a lot of friends in Iraq, but was that, necessary? Like, and I don't want to begrudge them and what happened. But I'm like, I don't know if what we did over there was worth their life.
Right? I agree. I mean, it's something I like to ask every combat vet that comes on the show is, and what's interesting is the recurring theme of nobody really had an idea of what winning in either of those places looked like. And I'm not naive to the fact that at 22 years old in a special operations unit, like, no, you probably don't and even shouldn't
question.
Well, even get the high level, Joint Chiefs briefing to the president level strategy. But I do think, it is important to understand why you're doing what you're doing at some degree or at some level.
Totally. Look at every, I'm down here to do a speaking event. And I do, I have a full-time job, but I do speaking events from time to time. And like, one thing I tell people is if you're doing something challenging, if you're doing something worthwhile, it's going to be hard, right? And if it's going to be hard, it's important to know what the mission is, right? What our team's mission is, like what's kind of the long-term vision, like what does success look like? Mm-hmm. And what's my little piece in that, right? So if this team, hey, if the boss just says, hey, I need you to stay late, just in a vacuum, no other information, it's kind of like, why? But if the boss is like, hey, a couple days this week, could you stay late? We got this big thing. We're going to do this. It's huge, and you're incentivized and you realize, and you're part of it, you're like, okay, I know where we're at. I know where we're going. And I know that my part of where we're going matters. Right. So, and some once in a while at Dev Group, if there was some big mish, to use the phrase, then that would happen. I do, and even obviously at the time, everyone agreed with going to Afghanistan that. I wouldn't take that back, but what does success look like and what does victory look like? It's not nation building or whatever we were trying to do. And just the way we left both of them, right? It's just what
was the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to leave the way that we did, I think it's impossible not to ask that question of, what was that for then?
It's the farm I grew up on, got sort of the whole acreage, right? The house, all the sheds, the barns and the hog lots, even the grove, right? And I have a photo of it. That is this little couple of acres, and it's this area that's surrounded by a huge cornfield, right? All Iowa farms, right? You call it an acreage or a farm site. At some point, Highway 20 had to bypass my little hometown and go north of town. Well, via eminent domain or whatever, that whole farm site it's bulldozed under and there's nothing there anymore. there is some grass and then a road. And I look at this area that like shaped me, right? And, A, took so much from me, but then like probably gave me more than it took. And you do all like the hours and the hours, just me, one person. And like think about my dad and my uncle and my brother, my brothers, and all the hired men out there and the hundreds, thousands of man hours that was like, and sweat and blood that was, poured on this one little farm. It's all gone. Right. Like, and you kind of like, well, what was that for? You just like, it didn't, it's gone now. Right. And now in that instance, right, like it's not exactly the same because, of the lessons I learned on that farm and the person it made me. Right. And the times I got to spend with my brothers, my dad, friends out there. But, you look at Iraq and Afghanistan and like, it's just like,
what did we get for that?
Yeah. And everyone at the time was like, oh, you're there to get the oil. I'm like, pretty sure that wasn't like, we didn't get any of the oil.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure gas prices haven't changed much.
Yeah.
So
that's just like one of the,
or they go up and down the same way they always have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's something that I think most guys who have spent time in both of those AOs struggle with, and I agree. Like the last thing I would want to do is insult or imply that any of the deaths of American service members in both campaigns over several decades were in vain.
Yeah.
And even if you could vehemently believe that both of them were mistakes, which I'm not saying they were, I'm just saying hypothetically, I still don't think it is because, you need a constant portion of every generation to volunteer to serve their country in that capacity. It's the collective nation's job to put the right people in the positions to direct where those volunteers go, and if anything, that should be the lesson is, for both our government and our society to make sure that you're only using people who are selfless enough to make that sacrifice if they absolutely need to be used,
And I think, I haven't done the mental work to like really formulate this opinion correctly, but I'll say like, I mean, war is not the worst of things, right? There's that quote, John Stuart Mill, like it's not the worst of things. Like it's just in summary, it's worse when you don't have something worth fighting for, right? So there are times where wars need to be fought, right? And they're just, but like just having like knowing what victory would look like before going, and then going and fighting hard and winning and then leaving, right? Something like that, right? Like it's not the worst of things to go to war. It's like, it's much worse when you don't have anything worth fighting for, right? That being said, like, define what success looks like.
Yeah, define what we were actually fighting for.
What's the objective here?
Yeah.
Is the objective to, make money for these big contracting groups? And I'm not saying that's 100% what it was, but like...
It had to have been a factor, I mean... it's impossible to deny that, which... Go ahead.
It honestly didn't really hit me until I was listening to someone talk about Ukraine, right? And... Zelensky was in the U.S. It was during our last election cycle, and I mean, at some point he was like saying, like, well, not only does Ukraine need more money, but like you guys need to be ready to come fight for us. And like, if I was still in the military, like part of me might probably be like, sweet, I want to keep going, right? But now I'm out. And I have a son who's old enough to fight. And then I was like, like America first. Like we don't need to be fighting that war, right? Or unless you can show me like an actual reason why we would, like,
Right.
other than military industrial complex or whatever. Like, to me, it was like that really made it hit home for me.
Yeah, agreed. And for me, similarly, I mean, that plus seeing the paper trails of money of what's being given, and our own politicians who are in middleman positions in a lot of those.
Generals that move into large government.
Yeah, they're sitting on the board at Boeing or,
Yeah.
Raytheon or Halliburton.
Enlisted SEALs don't get those jobs.
For sure they don't. Well, I mean, I had this discussion with another guy on the show in the last month or so. I'm not naive to the fact that there is an element of, for civilian private sector companies that are producing
Sure.
products and technology and capabilities for the American warfighter. Like, it only makes sense to have former military guys with decades of experience advising them.
Yep.
Where I don't understand maybe the right way to make a conflict of interest
Yep.
protocol make sense is, because when that same guy's, roommate from the academy is the Secretary of Defense, and who's getting a kickback if we go into country A, and that's going to make our entire family rich because we're going to kick this, $17 billion missile program, and that's going to be our main thing that we use in this area. Like, there's just like that just ruins it so fast.
I think where it becomes a conflict, just logical order of thought. I have no issue when that company hires an enlisted SEAL or a SEAL admiral or an Army enlisted or Army general, whatever, like, to help advise them on the, what they need and how to make it and how the Department of Defense would use that, right? Like, that is a no-brainer. What gets challenging is when there's somebody connected to that person who is awarding business, right? Which, I mean, ultimately there's always going to be, right? But, like, I guess a corollary might be like, you have all these people that come from a big pharma and work in the FDA. Like, they're just, it's kind of, and I understand, like, that's just the process, but, like, it just kind of, there's so much temptation for,
To me, what's baffling is that, like, I can't think of a higher stakes scenario than that. Think about, say, referees for professional sports, right? Like, if you went to...
And they all played at a certain team.
Right. If you're or let's say you're a college ref and you went to Ole Miss, you
might have a conflict.
You're probably not going to be the ref for Ole Miss.
Right.
Like, that's pretty easy to understand. And I'm sure that there are rules. I mean, you probably couldn't even referee in that conference.
Right.
Right. Or maybe not even in college. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even in that division. It'd have to be 2A or 3A, I mean, there are very clear-cut rules.
It's kind of like insider trading.
Yeah, or like gambling as a professional. Like, there are very specific rules. Those don't exist in the government for insider trading, for industrial military complex, conflict of interest with foreign policy. And it's like, it reminds me again of kind of the, sports versus the military with gender stuff and, trans rights and, and things of saying, hey, we're going to allow this in the military when you don't even allow it in professional sports.
Yeah. It's just
like that's the pinnacle of where we shouldn't be muddying the water or testing things. Like, that's the last place any of those types of things should happen.
It's just, I'm glad to see it's changed. But, I mean, you're always an election away from it going back.
I know it.